everyone. Thanks for joining us in this webinar with University of North Carolina, Wilmington. I am Claudia Ortiz, one of the two Education USA advisors in Mexico City. And well, this webinar is about marine science programs in the US with, again, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And without further ado, I'm going to pass off to the experts. And please, Susanna, Kimberly, and Jessie Haim, you can introduce yourself as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar. My name is Jessie Haim, the Assistant Director of International Student and Scholar Services at UNCW. So I'll be covering some undergraduate admissions tips, and I'll give it to Susanna.
Hi, I'm Dr. Susanna Lopez-Legentil, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Biology and Marine Biology.
My name is Kimberly Harris, and I'm from the graduate school here at UNC Wilmington.
We're going to get started and pull up our presentation for you. All right. So all of you should be able to see our marine science programs in the U.S. presentation now. And so we will get started with Dr. Susanna here. Just to give you a brief idea of our agenda, first we're going to discuss marine science programs in the United States. Then we'll go over just general graduate admissions information for marine science programs, as well as undergraduate admissions programs. And just so you know, we're happy to take questions, but we are going to address those at the end. So we'll have plenty of time to answer any questions you have at the end of the presentation. All right.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk about the marine science programs in the US. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, since I'm an international student, or I was an international student. Then we'll talk about what's marine science, and so you understand exactly what you're getting into if you choose to do marine science work. What is a marine science major, what classes you will have to take, which other alternatives you have if you don't really want to do all marine science, but something that's somehow related to marine science. There are some alternatives for you. What is next? Once you have your bachelor degree, what else you should do if you want to land one of the few and precious jobs in marine science? And what do we do here at UNCW? Which kind of measures we offer? Which kind of research we do here? And at the end, if you have any questions for me, I will be happy to answer those. So just a little bit about me. I'm from Spain, born in Barcelona, so I guess I could say Catalan. I did my bachelor degree in biology at the University of Barcelona. Then I went to the University of Paris 6 in France to get my master's degree, returned to the University of Barcelona to get a PhD degree in zoology. Then I did my first postdoc at the University of Perpignan in France, and a second postdoc at the University of Wilmington, here actually. Then I landed my first job at the University of Barcelona as a faculty, an assistant professor. And then for personal motives, I moved back to UNC Wilmington back in 2013. So as you can see, I'm a good example of an international student and now an international professional. So hopefully I'll be able to help you along if you need any help. Since I'm born in Spain, I can answer questions in Spanish. So please feel free to address questions to me in Spanish. All right, what's marine science? Marine science is a very multidisciplinary field, so from different disciplines that all focus on researching ocean-related questions. It's ecosystems, like the flora, the currents, or it's life, like dolphins and fish. And to do that, we need a very, very good understanding of the physical environment. There is three main disciplines that are englobed in marine science. And there are a lot others, but the three main ones are marine biology. So this is one of your alternatives if you choose to do that, oceanography, and coastal management. Say that you decide to go for a marine science major, and we offer a lot of those in the US. You'll have to take a series of classes, starting by organic chemistry. So hopefully you like chemistry a little bit. You will also have to take classes in physics. And here in the slide, I'm putting you the basic definitions of each of those in case you need them. you'll have to take classes in statistics, and I have to stress the importance of this one. We never pay too much attention to statistics, and then you realize that everything, any work you do in the future has some kind of statistics attached to it. Botany, which is the study of the plants, but since we're doing marine science, is also the study of the algae, and zoology, which is the study of the animals. You will also have to take classes in marine ecology, which is the study of the interactions among organisms. And here on organisms, we include animals, but also plants and microbes. Marine geology, to study how the seafloor is made and how it shapes and changes over time. Marine biology, which is concentrates in the study of the life in the ocean, and actually mostly a marine biologist, so I really liked this one. It's based on the study of the life forms in the ocean, and then oceanography, which studies the physical properties of the ocean. For instance, how the currents work. All right, so say you're a high school student, because really I don't know which is your level. If you're a high school student and you have, depending on the education in Mexico, we didn't have any options in Spain, or not too many, but say you can choose which classes you want to take. The ones that will help you better for a marine science major are geometry, physics, chemistry, biology, environmental science, and algebra. So if you still have time to select some classes, I recommend you take all of them if possible, and that will help you during your major, hopefully in the US, by the way. You don't have to have a marine science major to work in marine science related fields. There is a lot of other majors you may choose and still become a marine science researcher or have a marine science related career. So for instance, you can choose a major in marine biology, you can choose a major on atmospheric science and meteorology, environmental studies, chemistry, ecology, geology, physics, botany, or zoology. In fact, my PhD is in zoology, and I was hired as a marine biologist. So you see, there is different ways, different pathways that you can follow to get to your goal, if your goal is to become a marine science professional. All right, this is all fun and nice, but right now there is a lot of competition for marine science. There is a lot of people that like the marine environment and want to study it somehow. So a bachelor degree, it's nice to get started, but it's probably not going to be enough to land your dream job. So you're going to have to do a little bit more, and there is when you go to the master programs or the PhD programs. So the US is very welcoming to international students. And as you can see in the graph that's in your right or left, depending how you're seeing the screen, you're going to see that the number of international students have been increasing pretty steadily. It is a very highly competitive environment. So not all schools will take all international applicants. So for instance, Harvard University has an acceptance rate of 14%, while universities like San Francisco State University has an acceptance rate of up to 75%, right? So your chances to get into San Francisco State University are much higher than your chances to get into Harvard University. So you may want to check on those as well. And maybe your admissions specialist will say a little bit more about this. All right, how to get into graduate school? Of course, you need a brilliant GPA or a GPA. This is the grades you get at the end of your, I don't know if you call them GPA. We didn't call them GPA in Spain. So, but this is your average grade once you graduate. And this always helps. You want a good grade, a good overall grade, but you also need as much research experience as possible. So at the high school level, that's pretty challenging, but at the undergraduate level, once you are while you're studying your bachelor, you can do this. And there is several ways to get research experience. The first one is to get an internship. Internships can be paid or unpaid. It depends of the offer. Of course, paid ones are more competitive than unpaid, but you can find internships. For instance, at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, every year they're offering internships. You can take a research-oriented course, or also called applied learning sometimes, where you earn credits if you go to a lab and do some research with that lab. Each university calls it differently. Here at UNCW, we call it directed independent study, but there is things like honor projects and practicums. All those will give you a research experience, and you're gonna need this research experience when you apply for graduate school and even for a job. And if you don't get any of those, you can always volunteer to go and work in a lab and learn. And this is actually what I did as an undergraduate. I just find a research lab. I liked what they were doing, and I offered to help for free. It was time consuming, but it served me well. I ended up publishing a couple of papers, and that actually allowed me to enter graduate school later on. So you may also just, if this is what you want to do, you need to be highly motivated and just volunteer with no paid if this is what it takes to get you where you want to be. What kind of job opportunities have marine science personnel have? Well, you can work as a technician in an aquaculture facility, or as a field or a lab technician, a lab manager, all those. You can also, well, if you're very lucky, you can also become a research scientist, and that means that you can investigate ecological questions that are relevant to you, or just not ecological, physical related questions about currents or whatever. You can become a science instructor, so you can teach the younger generations about your area of expertise. Like if it's marine biology, you can teach marine biology, you can become an instructor. Or you can go the hard and long way and then follow your master's degree with a PhD degree with a ton of postdocs, and eventually land a position as a professor or as a lecturer at a university. And that's actually what I did. And I can tell you more about it if you're interested in these opportunities. What do we offer at UNCW? Well, we offer a lot of different majors, and you can see here in the screen the list. We don't have really a marine science major, but we have a lot of marine science related majors, starting with marine biology, but we also have oceanography, chemistry, biology, environmental studies, physics, and within physics, we have an option called physical oceanography, if you're interested in that. Also geoscience and geography. And that's for undergraduates, okay? For graduates, that's the master level programs or PhD programs. We have a master in marine biology, a master in marine science, a master of coastal and ocean policy, a PhD in marine biology, and we are currently negotiating with ECU, the Eastern Carolina University, a PhD program in integrative coastal and marine sciences. So hopefully next year, this PhD program will be available. What is very interesting, and I don't know if you have this in Mexico, is that most U.S. universities offer what is called teaching assistantship. So a teaching assistantship is a salary that you receive for 9 months, so for the academic year, for providing teaching two labs of the department curriculum. So say you teach 2 labs, that's 4 hours of lab teaching students, undergraduates, and they pay you here $11,500 for 9 months. So that helps you pay your tuition. We don't have anything like this in Spain. When we go through a master, we pay from pocket and we don't get paid for teaching. We don't have this option. So you may want to consider this, that you can get some salary out of your studies. So not everything is out of pocket money from you, okay? Here at UNCW, and we are very, very active in research. We like research. We do as much research as possible. And so there is a lot of different groups, research groups and PIs working on marine science-related questions. And I just put here the list, and you can look at it with more time, but they range from coastal and benthic ecology, what we do here, all the way to coastal and ocean policy. And of course, there is a lot of oceanography related, etc. in the middle. So if you're interested in UNCW, please have a look at the different research areas. All right, thank you. Questions afterwards?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Harris, and I'll be speaking from a graduate school perspective. So here at Graduate Admissions, we'd like to speak to you about how to strengthen your graduate application. The first item that you should consider is you need to maintain a strong GPA on your undergraduate coursework. Most universities require a 3.0 overall on your bachelor's degree, or at least a minimum of 3.0 on the courses prerequisite to your program. So it's very important that you remain competitive with your undergraduate grade point average. You'll also want to determine your specific area of research interest. Many universities have different areas of interest, and so you definitely want to review their websites, talk to the faculty, talk to the staff, find out what the specific areas that they will offer to make sure that it does align with your goals. Another item that can strengthen your graduate application is you'll want to foster faculty relationships. Your recommendations are very important. They can set you apart from other applicants. And so as the previous presenter recommended, internships, volunteering, and also research experience can set you apart. So you want to foster those relationships to have a recommendation for graduate school. Some helpful information. You want to make sure to research your location of interest. As previously mentioned, different universities have the different focus areas. University location may also impact your program options. Whether you're near the coast or not could make a difference. Often here, because we are on the coast at University of North Carolina, Wilmington, you may see a stranding of a dolphin. And so we'll see faculty and students and staff can actually go out and participate in that event. You also want to explore housing. There is housing options available quite often for graduate students on and off campus. And typically you have a university housing that can help with that. You'll also want to ask campus experts for guidance. Don't be afraid to ask questions, either by email or calling are excellent ways to get your questions answered to make sure that you're getting timely responses. Something else that you'll want to do is to plan accordingly. You'll want to submit your application early. Immigration paperwork can take months to finalize, so you want to make sure that you've gotten your application in, a decision has been reached, and that you can receive your appropriate immigration documents. And quite honestly, typically programs in marine science are very competitive, so the earlier you get your application into the university, you'll make sure that faculty have plenty of time to review that. As far as your goals, you'll want to visit your campus career center. Whether it's the undergraduate or graduate level, career centers can help with planning your writing your resume, writing your essays, and also with job placement. So that's an excellent resource for those items. Also, the writing can help you with setting your application apart and your resume to make sure that you stand out from the other applicants. When you're applying to the graduate programs in marine biology, it's very important to review the institution website. Oftentimes there may be requirements that vary from institution to institution, so you want to make sure to check all of the boxes of requirements. Most institutions have an online application, which is very easily accessible from the internet. But there again, you want to make sure and ask any questions that you have, because you want to make sure and get your application submitted in a timely manner so your application can be reviewed. Most often institutions have a catalog, and the catalog is based on your year that you'll be attending. Requirements can change from year to year, so you definitely want to look at the catalog requirements, the program course requirements for your program of interest. Typically, graduate programs have what's called a graduate program coordinator, and that coordinator can answer questions about the program specifically. And then you'll also have an admissions area for the graduate school that can answer questions about the application. So you definitely want to make contact with the program coordinator and gather your application materials early. Determining what's required for that specific institution is key, because it may take some time to write an excellent essay to get your writing center to help you with that. Here at UNC Wilmington and other UNC schools, as the previous presenter mentioned, we have what's called Assistantships, but we also have what's called out-of-state tuition remissions. And typically international students are considered out of state, but the out-of-state tuition remission actually drops their tuition to the in-state rate. So those are very competitive and coveted, but it is terrific to be able to pay that in-state tuition differential. The marine biology requirements, just wanted to go over those for here at UNC Wilmington. Typically, a 3.0 is required or higher, as we spoke of, based on a 4.0 scale. GPA is based on the overall bachelor's degree, so that would be your undergraduate degree. Additional requirements are the GRE, and typically about 3 recommendations. So like we spoke of before, what you may want to do is to foster those relationships through volunteering, internships, or your research. Sometimes there may be a research areas form. It's basically your interest area. So for instance, it could be, are you interested in environmental conservation? Are you interested in microbiology or neuroscience? Also a resume. And then some programs require a bachelor's degree in a specific area. And so for marine biology here at UNC Wilmington, we actually do require a bachelor's degree in the area of a biology-related field.
I just need to check the internal chat real quick. You'll just bear with us for just a moment. So we can pull that up. Okay. All right. Let me just pull that up again. All right. Sorry about that. You on, Kimberly?
All right. There you go.
All right. On three. Thank you, Kimberly. So again, my name is Jessie Heim. I previously have worked in undergraduate admissions internationally, and now I work on the international student and scholar side of things. So I'm just going to give a brief overview for general undergraduate admissions information in the United States, as well as UNC Wilmington specific. So just to get started, some general advice on as far as undergraduate admissions and what admissions counselors are looking for in the U.S. Definitely a challenging high school or secondary school curriculum, depending on what's available to you. So some of you might be in an American school or an international school that might have AP courses or IB programs, more commonly IB programs. Those are certainly challenging opportunities that universities in the U.S. would look highly on as far as academic rigor. So I definitely encourage you to pursue those types of challenges if you can. It'll make your application stronger. Good grades are always a positive. If you kind of start off maybe your first year of secondary school and struggle a bit, if you have an upward grade trend, that'll look favorably for you. So definitely, don't relax your last year or your senior year or your junior year. You really just want to continue to up your rigor and up your grades. Most universities in the U.S. are going to require some type of test score for undergraduate admissions. So that might be, for example, an SAT or an ACT score. That typically isn't mandatory for international students because most universities recognize that the SAT or ACT might not be readily available in all countries. So you will have to at least submit one of those, or if not one of those, you'll have to submit a TOEFL or possibly an IELTS if English isn't already your first language. So those are important things to look at as far as universities that you're thinking about. If the SAT is required for international students, you have to consider, is that feasible for you if that test is readily available in your area to take? Other things that universities look favorably on are involvement opportunities. So any leadership roles that you might have had, that could be within the school or it could be outside of school, maybe through community service. Any opportunities that you've really dedicated yourself to improving a program or organization is going to look highly for universities. It doesn't have to be that you join 25 different clubs your last year. It might be 2 or 3 things that you've been involved in for several years. And so you want to make sure you highlight that on your application. Essays are always a stressful part sometimes for students for the application process. It doesn't need to be, but it certainly can play an important role in your application. And again, not every university is going to require essays, but some and many certainly do. So those are really an opportunity for you to let the university to get to know you a bit more sort of outside of the numbers. So definitely take those seriously. Make sure you write about, what the essay prompt is asking for. Make sure you write the full length amount that's required for the essay, and kind of cater that specifically to the university that you're applying to, because that can definitely set you apart sometimes from other applicants, depending on what that essay looks like. And then you want to have positive recommendations from either your counselors or teachers, possibly principals, depending on if the school requires that. Some schools require recommendation letters and some don't. So that's an important thing to look at on the application to make sure that you're not missing those, and that it could hold up your application being completed if you don't have those recommendations submitted. Some other helpful tips. Make sure you do your research as far as where you're thinking about studying in the U.S. Some things that can really have a big impact are the cost of living in the area. For example, the cost of living in Wilmington is going to be much less than perhaps in New York City. So those are things to factor in, not only with the tuition of the universities that you're looking at, but just what it's actually going to cost you to live in that area, to eat in that area, to go out and kind of have a social life in that area. Those are all things to think about as far as additional costs that can add up and kind of not be planned sometimes if students don't look into that. The weather is an important factor. If you're, like colder weather, you probably don't want to go to Florida. If you want, a warmer climate, California, North Carolina, Florida might all be good options. And those are things to think about with the academic programs too. For example, our marine science programs work out great for Wilmington because we're a coastal school. So we have access to the ocean, the intercoastal waterway, the rivers, lots of access for students to be involved in that environment that we have right here around campus. Other things you want to do is make sure you are not shy as far as asking questions for your admissions officer. Most schools have admissions counselors kind of dedicated to certain areas for students. So for example, one admissions officer might handle all of Central America. So that would be your contact, or another officer might handle all of Europe. So you might want to reach out to them just depending on where you live, because they can answer any questions for you, and will also most likely be familiar with your specific school. So they'll be familiar with what your school curriculum options are. Other things that you want to ask them are, everything from application questions to, what vegetarian options are available on campus. So they're really there for a resource as sort of your first point of contact when you're looking into a university, to help answer any of those questions that you may have and thinking about, is this school going to be a good fit for me? Other things that you want to do is make sure you plan ahead. The application process can take some time for different universities. Some universities are on rolling schedules. Some have specific deadlines. So it's important to, if you want to apply to a university, make sure you're not applying, after the deadline. So definitely look into it, plenty in advance just so you're prepared for that. Another important factor is that your immigration paperwork can take months sometimes to finalize, as far as getting like a F1 student visa, which is the most common visa if you want to pursue a degree in the United States as an international student. So depending on where you live, the embassy might take longer in some places than others, depending on how busy they are. So that's important to think about. You don't want to apply and get admitted and then think that you're going to be able to start, 2 weeks from that point, because that realistically might not be enough time for you to get your visa. So ideally you start having, kind of months in between when you actually start the immigration process before you actually start at the school, so that you have plenty of time to make all those preparations. And then other things, when you're looking at universities, think about, what career do you really want? And make sure that aligns with what options are available at the university to study. Do they have internships, mentorship programs, study abroad programs, all those types of opportunities that can really develop your resume to go into a career after your studies. On your application, don't be shy in bragging about yourself. You want to really showcase your accomplishments. You want the university that you're applying to really see all of your strengths. So don't be shy to do that. That can sometimes lead to more scholarship opportunities, and definitely can help, make your application more competitive. And then as far as applying to marine biology programs specifically, one thing to look for as far as universities that you're considering is whether or not you go directly into a major. That can really vary school to school. For example, at UNCW, you don't necessarily go directly into the marine biology program. If you're coming in as a freshman, you have to do some general coursework first, but that's not the case for every school. There's advantages to really both ways. If you're kind of on the fence about if you want to study marine biology and you do want to take a variety of kind of intro courses and other subjects, that might be a good fit for you where you don't have to go directly into that major. If you're definitely set on it, then you might want a school where you can go directly into that major. So it really just kind of depends on your preference. And then again, like I mentioned, the location is obviously a big factor. So if you want to, learn more about dolphins, Wilmington could offer that. If you want to learn more about seals, that's not going to be the place for you. You might want to look on the Pacific Northwest. So those are all things to kind of factor in with where you're looking. And then as far as UNCW specific requirements for the undergrad marine biology program, just briefly here, you have to complete either biology 201 or 202 or something equivalent to that with a grade C or higher. So that's equivalent of a 2.0 GPA on a US 4.0 scale. And once you have that, you also have to complete a minimum of 24 semester hours of credit before you can be eligible to be a full marine biology major. Transfer students, which means those are students that have either studied at another university internationally or maybe are studying at a community college in the US or somewhere else, but they're transferring in with college credit, must meet those admissions requirements as well, as far as having at least 24 semester credit hours and then completing those biology 201 and 202 courses or something that's equivalent to that at another school. And then if you do have an associate degree, which is becoming more common for international students to pursue first in the United States prior to pursuing a bachelor's program, that can be a good opportunity for you as well. You just must have at least a 2.0 grade point average in 2 biology courses that you're transferring in with for that as well. And then students that maybe perhaps don't meet those admission requirements right away will be considered pre-majors until they fall under that category of meeting those requirements I just discussed. So you don't have to come in right away and meet those requirements. You can progress towards it if needed. So now we're going to go to the question section. So I'm going to escape this so I can see the chat, and I'll also pull up our contact information, and Education USA has it as well. But let me just pull up the chat box here, and I'll pull us back up so you can see us. Just bear with me here. Okay. All right. So let's see. We've got some questions. Do we require a minimum SAT score for undergraduate candidates? That's a great question. The minimum for international students on the old SAT is 450 for the critical reading. I believe it's 600 for the new version. So depending on which SAT that you're taking, the new equivalent of the critical reading tells us whether or not you meet our English proficiency requirements. So as far as the SAT score, we are pretty lenient for international students because we recognize that you may not necessarily have been prepped for the SAT for years, as students in the United States probably have been. So that's how we handle the SAT, but that can certainly vary school to school. Some schools might have the SAT be mandatory and their minimum score might be very different from ours. Our average as far as the composite for the new SAT is around 1,300. So to give you an idea of where most admitted students fall across the board internationally and domestically, it's 1,300 for the new SAT composite. And then the GRE, I'll let Kimberly speak to that.
Sure. So on the GRE, we don't have necessarily a minimum, but what we take into consideration are all facets of the application. So we're looking at the undergraduate GPA, We're looking at the recommendations that are submitted, the writing sample, also the area of interest, because as we mentioned before, you need to make specific contact with the coordinator, and each program has, from biology and marine biology, have it broken down into specific areas as far as your focus. And so if there's room in the lab, then that's whenever that faculty member will take a look at applications for that area. So the GRE, it's not necessarily a minimum or a maximum, but you do need to typically be about 50th percentile.
Great. And then as far as students, do they have access to apply directly to a PhD program?
No. We normally don't do that. We normally take our students at the master level, and we keep for a PhD into the PhD program our best master students. So we normally prefer having students as a master so we can choose the best ones that will go for a PhD program.
And then what's the average number of students per classroom? Our average is around 22 students here. That does depend on kind of where you are in your degree. If you're in a graduate classroom, that could be much smaller. If you're in an undergraduate classroom as a freshman, it could be much, much larger. But average, it's around 22. It's the 17-to-1 teacher to student ratio. So that is pretty good as far as giving you the opportunity to work closely with your professors and really get to know them. As far as internships, we do have opportunities for students to work on campus. International students definitely have the opportunity to work on campus on an F1 visa for up to 20 hours per week. We do have many F1 students do that. It helps pay for their tuition and fees. There also are opportunities to pursue OPT, which is optional practical training, which you can do for up to a year after you finish your degree program. And that means that you just have to work somewhere in your field for us to approve it for immigration purposes, which allows you to work. So you get an employment authorization card and can do that for up to 12 months. And there also are some opportunities at a graduate level to do curriculum practical training, which means it has to be kind of an integral part of your program. And you can do that for undergrad too. It's just a bit trickier. But basically that means that you can work while you're studying as long as it is, a critical part of your program. So whether it's an internship that will help you graduate or a work study or something along those lines, that your academic advisor approves that you are able to do that for your F1 visa. As far as subject SATs, we do not require those, not subject specific. We just need the general composite SAT. Financial aid, I'll let Kimberly speak for graduate program options on that.
Sure. So typically for financial aid at the graduate level, international students are typically not available for that. But keep in mind, we do have the Assistantships and the out-of-state tuition remissions. Those are competitive, but they do help to lower that tuition to be in-state, which is a good rate. And then the Assistantships are a great way to work with faculty. And then you do get a stipend for that, a monthly stipend.
Also, I have a correction of my previous answer. If you actually are lucky enough to land a Fulbright, you can come directly for a PhD program. I actually have a student that has a Fulbright and already had a master from Indonesia in this case, and he went straight to the PhD program. So we're referring to the normal steps. If you come here as a master, then we select the best ones for a PhD. But if you get your own funding, then yes, you can come for a PhD. Sorry about that. I forgot about the exception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I see that looks like the full list of questions we have. So I just want to say thank you all for having us today. As I provided our contact information on the previous slide, international@uncw.edu is where you can contact us. We'd love to hear from you and provide any more information as needed. So thanks again for tuning in and listening to us today. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey.
We don't hear you.
I can't hear you yet.
Hello. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the webinar and for sharing such useful information as well. I just want to remind to the students and everyone who is joining this webinar that Education USA is a global network of more than 450 advising centers around the world, and we provide free, unbiased, and updated information about undergraduate studies, graduate studies, and English as a second language studies in the U.S. So feel free to contact your Education U.S.A. advisor in your region, and we'll work together to find the best fit for you depending on your interests, your needs, and everything. So keep in contact, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar. See you.
Thank you.